we're working on today is I replaced the master cylinder of this. The seal was bad and it was filling this the brake booster up with brake fluid. It was so bad that the brake fluid actually got to the level of high enough up here that I think some of that was actually being pulled into the engine through the vacuum. This vacuum hose here that goes to the block back on the other side. So anyway, replaced the master cylinder and filled this reservoir up with brake fluid, and it is, take a look here, take a look, it is completely dry. So it has leaked out all of the brake fluid, which obviously not good. So we need to figure out where this is coming from, where it's leaking, and what to do about it. So, but first, let's get this out of our way to make some room. Apologize for the screaming children next door. They have a sport out here in the alley that is apparently playing something, complaining, arguing about the rules and the point scoring, and then just devolving into just yelling at each other. So, it seems to be the sport. Three brothers, so that's, I have two brothers, that's what we did too, so. Tank out of the way. All right. So it's clearly just leaking brake fluid straight down from everything, which is great. It's awesome. All right. Okay. So where were we? Took that out of the way. These were a pain to get in here. And it seems like this bottom one, I can't tell if it's leaking. It's hard to tell. Like the side of it is not wet. So I don't think it's leaking from the top, you know, the gaskets here. And those are, it wobbles, but it's actually, they're just rubber mounts, and they're pretty good. I mean, it's pretty tight in there. So I don't think it's that. What I think it is those fittings, these guys, it's actually leaking out of there, which is, I mean, there's no, not with any, it's not like leaking out under pressure, it's just leaking, which is really irritating. So, and you know, you get these little wrenches here, and this one is a 10 on one side and 12 on the other combo. And guess what this nut size is? If you guessed an 11, you're right. But I don't have an 11, one of these guys. I have just the normal end, which these little guys are, I mean, it's almost like it's bottoming out. I don't really understand how these could be leaking. I know one thing for sure, when I was putting this back together, these were a gigantic pain to line up, get in there right, and to thread correctly. I'm wondering, can you put like that tape, that Teflon tape on these fittings? I'll look that up real quick, because that would probably solve it. because it wouldn't leak anymore because it just gums the whole thing up, I believe. I just don't know. Because it feels like it's almost like even though this is all the way in and tight, you know, if you tighten this all the way in, no, that's tight. Because it's not really the outside of these that's causing the, I guess you don't, the tape wouldn't do you any good because it doesn't actually, you know, it's not the sealing around the threads that's the problem. It's the, you know, it's pushing this little guy in all the way. I don't know, maybe these lines are just shot. I don't know. So yeah, so that's the newest pane. And this is the clutch. I don't think I've ever even checked the level on this. Ugh, gross. There's all sorts of like stuff floating in that one. Okay, well, let's do that another time. Clutch is working fine. Don't want to start messing with it and have it screwed up. Okay, so let me look online real quick to see what to do about these guys in here. Because it seems it's leaking out of both ports. So it's leaking out of this one and this one and this one. So it's leaking out all three, I think. Because this reservoir, there's two, that's like a divided reservoir. The reservoir in the back goes to the rear brakes, and the reservoir in the front goes to the front brakes. And this one leaks slower. This one leaks super fast. Yeah, and then it's split. So the front brakes it's split across these two. So one just goes right out here into the wheel well, and then the one goes around the back and over there. So, you know, they wouldn't be easy to replace for sure. So hopefully this end, I can figure out something that somebody's already figured out. Use the intelligence of the internet to see if I can figure out how to make that a little tighter of a fit. All right, so did a quick little investigation. So with brake lines, there's two different kind of styles. There's the double flare and the bubble flare, and the bubble flare is European and metric, and the double flare is, I guess, standard like US. These are bubble flares. It's probably kind of, I don't know if you can see that, but it's not a, I'll double check to make sure this right. But I think these are just too small, like there's too much slop in there. And so when this is pushing down on them, it's not, like the flare is almost like too shallow. Yeah, because I can't tighten it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go on Amazon or whatever and get a flaring tool. Unfortunately, around here there's not a lot of places that loan tools out. So I'm gonna do that. Get a flaring tool, reflare the ends of these lines, because the lines are fine. They're fine. I mean, they're, you know, it's not great, but they're not bad. And they're not leaking from the other end, and I've replaced the other end, brake lines on the other end, the soft lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and reflare this. All right, so that's going to have to wait a little while, so we'll just move on to another project. And I think what we'll tackle next is the windshield wipers. And I want you to see where we're starting with. And I'll show you how ridiculous these things are. So, as you can probably imagine, that isn't really going to do it, right? Like, that's clearly not the right speed. So, first step is got to take the windshield wiper arms off. They're also not, it's going off the other side of the thing. This needs to be lower, and they interfere with each other, and there's all sorts of problems. So, first step, get the windshield wiper arms off. Okay, so these are a 13 millimeter. By the way, I just got this this ratchet for Christmas. It's awesome. So the head pivots. So when you're doing something like this, you're ratcheting, spin it, you just flip it up and then you can spin it off. It's super nice. It's a Tecton. Highly recommended. I saw Hand Tool Rescue uses the larger version of this, and that's where I got the idea from. And as you probably seen me in some of the other stuff, big fan. That's a great channel. And this wrench that he makes, adjustable wrench, is awesome, especially for things where you have, the big square end nuts, either square nuts or bolts, or you just have like big ones that have a okay, so this comes off, arms come off, and then we've got to take the mounts off, the kind of underneath all this stuff. Here is just the little plastic cap, and then a big nut on there. Okay, so yeah, these just using this wrench because I don't have a deep enough socket. Turn those. It's a nut, and then there's like a little plastic piece that has a little hip that goes, that's first, and then there's this big flat washer, and then the nut, in that order. And then what you have to do is there are these incredibly small little screws that have partially broken off. Some of them have broken off. Some of them are just teeny. It's these little tiny, and if you have one of these cars, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's these like super tiny little screws that have these little tiny heads, and they rust, and they're usually painted over or rusted, and there's a million of them everywhere. And there's these little guys. I don't even know if you can see it. It's like these guys, and they use these on a whole bunch of stuff, and they're a pain because they break off, they rust closed all the time, and then they break off. So when I took this trim panel off before, you'll notice that this is black. This is usually, is the air compressor going on? You'll notice that this is black and not red. This was all, had a bunch of rust. Water had gotten and sat here, so I cleaned it up, and I don't have a matching can of red. And one of the other things that had happened was that these holes for the screws rusted out as well. So they basically just rusted together. So I cut those out, the one over here and the one over here, and put a rib nut in. So that's why there's one screw that's considerably larger than the others, but it's a stainless steel bolt instead of these little rusty screws. Okay, so then This is kind of a pain to get out because it's actually, this part's like up underneath the I think so one of the things I need to fix, this guy here is a riv nut bolt that I put in there. I think it got cross-threaded and I was just going too fast and I snapped the head off the bolt. So now I'm gonna, once I get this panel off, I'm gonna drill that out as well. Why is this not? To move you guys there. Okay, well maybe I don't see how that. Bend a little bit. Huh. What's going on here? What's holding this? Just holding that down. Okay, so now with the cowl off, let's see. Let me show you how. See how this goes. So that's high. So you can see there's just a motor here, central, and it has these two connecting arms. And again, the cowl has these little, I put this rib nut in, there's a rib nut in over there. This is the one that broke off, so now I gotta pull that out. See if I can work that back out. So yeah, let's put a windshield wiper on here and see if it's fouling on the cowl or what the speed is, specific speed is on this. That whirring noise you hear is the fuel pump, by the way. Okay, let's see what this does. It might just be a oomph. Yeah, that's the fast. I don't know. And I think when you put the other windshield wiper on, it just is overwhelming the motor. So you can rebuild these, so I've heard. So let's see if we can get that motor out and what we need to do that. So let's get this. Arm back off. Okay, so bolt here. So bolt. Here. These just This is the windshield wiper fluid hose. Yeah, I greased all these, so they have a relatively fresh coat of grease on them. And these arms just pop on. And there's a little, one of those little jaggy, I don't know if that was blood or red paint, it turns out. Okay. So these arms just have they just pop on and pop off. I'll leave it on for right now. Somebody isn't happy. Okay. So yeah, so this whole motor is attached to it. It's down there. We'll deal with that. Okay. There are 3 bolts that hold this motor on. Let's see how you do this. I'm wondering if you can just get this whole assembly out as one. Yes, you can. That's good. Okay. Don't know if that does us any good. Oh, I see. There's a little nut. There's a nut there. Don't know what that is. Let me get the right tools for this job. And in news that will shock exactly nobody, it is 10mm. So there's a. Let's see if you can see. Let me show you. Okay, so there's on here. This is the motor drive, and here is the nut. There's a nut that holds right here, and then there's 3 mounting things. So if you remove this nut and then you remove these 3 bolts, this arm assembly should be able to come off, and then we can deal with the motor itself. There's like a gearbox that I think that's right here. You know, this is the motor. It seems to be working fine. This gearbox sometimes just gets, you know, it's just old and gets all gunked up, and there's just so much junk, gross stuff in here. It doesn't surprise me if that was just totally filled with goo or something. A nut and a little washer. Yeah, they, I don't know if this is the respray or they do this at the factory, but there's painted over the bolts or anything. Yeah. Great. That's obviously not factory. Didn't paint over the bolts. Okay, what's that? Where did that go? Ha! Got it. So there's my one dropping of the episode. I don't think I dropped any nuts on the last one, mainly because we didn't get anything done. But so I say that, now I'm going to drop everything down in the engine compartment. All right. Go. So this whole assembly can kind of come out as one thing. We can kind of put it back together again, and then, yeah. Still pretty gummy. I think I can probably do a better job of greasing that up. Cleaning that up a little bit. It's gummy right here, a couple other places, but for now. Okay. So now let's see how this motor does without the load and see how if that gumminess is the problem. So let's just put that there. Clean my hands real quick. Okay, well, that's not a good sign. The motor isn't working at all. That's not good. Okay, so the motor goes in to here, and then there's this transmission casing. This is the thing that gets kind of gummed up, and like the grease just gets old and all that sort of stuff. So I think what we can do is, it looks like we can. I'm not sure how these wires are attached. It's very strange. Never seen anything like that. It's not, they're like, I guess it's soldered right onto the, okay. All right. Let me do some investigating here, figure out what's going on. Okay, well, let me show you what I'm looking at here. So the wires come into here, and these look like they're just soldered directly. It's hard to tell. Yeah, I think they're just soldered directly to this thing. I just got this something. Let me get a pick and see if I can. It's not small enough. Actual pick. Yeah, there's like a rubber coating or something, like, I don't know, it's like, but I can't. all over the wire, so I can't really tell how these things are connected and what they're connected to. Yep, I think these are just soldered directly onto here. Okay, well, yeah, this thing. Well, that makes this kind of a pain to work on. All right, well, let's open this up. See if I can just work on it from. Maybe this back cover just comes off, and then we can just unscrew the motor and then work on the contents of the gearbox, because I'm thinking that's probably the source of the problem. I think it's just this is probably gooped up, but I've also been wrong. Yep, this is pretty gross in here. It's a gasket. Keep that. Okay. Yeah, this needs to be thoroughly clean, and the grease is pretty bad. Okay. So this gearbox is held on by just two well, we'll see if that's what holds it on. Okay. Well, that's annoying. So the motor came out. Whew, look at that. Alright, well, we're going to have to clean that up, obviously. That's one of the problems. Alright. Okay, so this thing is super chalky in there as well. So I'm going to see, I think I can just pull this guy out. Yep. Okay, so this just comes out of the middle, and then I'll go in and this plate here. Just clean all this stuff up and put some new grease in here. And then we don't have to mess with this part, because that's the only moving part in there is this thing, and it's just all gooped up. So I'll clean that up, and then we'll go look at the other part of the motor, the electric motor. Okay, so let's start with this one first. This one's pretty easy. It's just pretty much just clean this bad boy up. Man, it's pretty crazy how corroded like this. I still can't get over there. That's messed up. It's almost like it was underwater or something. I really hope it doesn't, because those connections here along I'm gonna forget all my electrical motor. Of course, I could tell you what this is, not on camera, but these connections down here, those are pretty tenuous. All right. But it's not in bad shape, I don't think. It's like the teeth are all pretty good. Just really filthy. Get a brush. Okay, that's pretty good. It's not metal. It's weird. It's like a hard plastic or something. There's the game again. Argue about how to play it. This is just water. There's a tub of just like degreaser sort of solution that I have, kind of just handy. Turns out nice to have like a little tub. I need to put some more in there, but clean it out. It's pretty gross. It's like concentrated because all the moisture is evaporated. Okay, so that's in pretty good shape. Yeah, this just needs to be cleaned up. It looks like there's a little bit of corrosion inside. Can't really tell. It's greased on there, but obviously this is no good. That isn't gonna work. So need to clean this up while we're at it. the other part of the main part of the housing of the thing I'm going to have to fix in situ to clean it up while it's sitting right where it is, because I don't want to undo all that soldering just to move the thing over to the bench. Okay, so next on to this, the motor, the spinny bit that is super duper rusty. Not sure what the best, I'm going to try with a brass brush here. The issue is that these things are so teeny tiny and not very well connected. Just to be really careful not to nick or break one of those, because that would be all she wrote for this motor. So yeah, I think it's just going to be slow and steady work, but you don't need to watch me brush something. All right, back in a bit. All right, update looks like this now. Not perfect, but considerably better than it was. So there you go. Okay, so here's what I did. I cleaned this guy up, the outside. This is the motor housing. I cleaned up this. I will say one thing I noticed, putting this back together, I haven't put it all the way back together, just repack this with grease. Putting this back in through here, you have to do it without the case on, because all of these, there's 3 brushes in there. By the way, those were fine, looked fine. There's plenty of meat left. You have to get all 3 out of the way of this, whatever that's called, to get it in there, to make it so that it goes in. It's a gigantic pain. So, because you need like 2 more hands to do it. So, hopefully I didn't break anything doing this. Almost forgot this little tie-down thing here on the back. This little bridge tie-down thing. Don't forget that. Okay. So then this, oh man, this is gonna be a pain too. Got to get this in here and get it in the bearing in the back, which I already put some grease down in there. Put it in the bearing without this thing sticking to the side, which it's going to. No! So, that's how that happens. So we do have to do this first. What a gigantic pain. In. It's really hard to tell. Okay, so now all right. How in the world are we supposed to get all 3 of those brushes back? I just don't think just don't think there's any way to do that. I mean, because you can't, you need... You have to get these brushes out of the way. Okay. I'm gonna fiddle with this and I'll let you know what happens. Alright, so it's all back together again. Have the switch on the low setting. Motor here. It needs to be grounded. The case is grounded to the when you mount it, so just have a little jumper wire here. Test to see if it works. Yep. Spins and spins. All right, good, success. Thing about the windshield wipers is they actually run regardless of whether you have the, it'll go back to its the down position regardless if you have the switch on or not. So there's power running all the time, even if you have the keys out, it runs. Something to keep in mind. Okay, so that's it for tonight. I gotta go get dinner. But next, we'll put this back in here, and we'll work on the frame, the articulation part, as well as to grease that up a little bit better. See if we can get that to be, you know, a little bit, get this whole thing. And plus, while I have this out, I'm going to clean this up. And I'm also going to buy these hoses, because these are just totally chewed up and holes in them and stuff, and replace those. Yeah. So anyway, that's for next time. Got some ordering to do. I'll get the flare tool and these hoses, a couple other bits and pieces. Then, yeah. We'll finish up this episode when I get all that stuff in, and I'll show you what I was doing. All right. Have a good one.